and acknowledgement. The Minnesota Breastfeeding Coalition acknowledges that we are holding this virtual event on the traditional, ancestral, and present-day home of Indigenous communities. The beautiful land we all love is the stolen land of the Dakota and Ojibwe. Today, there are 7 Ojibwe reservations and 4 Dakota tribal communities in Minnesota. For the majority of the thousands of years Native families have lived on this land, babies thrived on their mother's milk. Colonization, violence, and forced family separation destroyed the legacy of breastfeeding within these communities. Our level of commitment can only be measured by the extent to which the dominant culture cedes control and power. MBC is committed to changing policies, practices, and behaviors in order to dismantle colonialism within our organization and within the field of lactation.
Thank you so much. I'm wondering if we could have other members of the MBC leadership introduce themselves, please. So Jeannie is our chair-elect, and thank you for introducing yourself. I know there's some other MBC leaders on here. And if you could just quickly just let everybody know who you are, because I want to make sure that this year we have our broader community, our broader MBC community really know who the MBC leadership is and know that you can rely on us and you can talk to us, you can connect with us when you need to.
Good morning, this is Kim Welvert. I am the chair for the Minnesota Breastfeeding Coalition and a co-chair for the Central Minnesota Breastfeeding Coalition. I work as an RN IBCLC for Central Care St. Cloud Hospital in the neonatal intensive care unit.
Thanks. Anybody else who's on the board who hasn't introduced themselves, or leading a subcommittee, or even a contracted who is working under contract with MBC? We have a few of those.
Hi, my name is Mohammed Kadir. I am from Somali Community Resettlement Service. And this summer, what I'm doing with the health advocacy and outreach. And really, we have hosting right now in Afghan refugee in Minnesota. So thank you very much, everyone.
Oh,
have a good day.
Definitely welcome.
I can go. My name is Katie Galloway, and I work for the Dakota County Public Health Department in the WIC program. I'm one of their coordinators. As it relates to MBC, I'm currently the chair of our governance subcommittee and dabble in the development team as well. So looking at kind of our fundraising efforts, but I also have been a past board member for several years and just came off the board. So I'm really excited to kind of be part of this and see where we go.
Any other MBC leadership that you can see in the roles? It's hard when I'm sharing, it's hard for me to see who's on. But if not, we'll catch you up. We'll loop you in. I wanted to start with why are we having a representative council? What happened to the steering committee? Many people might be asking. The steering committee was in our original bylaws as the method by which the main MBC community could come together and provide direction and actually do a lot of the planning. As MBC evolved, the steering committee became a little had a little bit less of that focus, and the practices were different from what was in the bylaws, and it became sort of a little clique, you know, kind of the same people every time, and we wanted to have a different configuration. So when we asked, so MBC asked, we asked, you know, the community, what do you need from getting together regularly? And this is what you told us. You wanted a place to learn about everything happening in Minnesota related to lactation. You told us that you wanted a place to connect the dots amongst, you know, between funding, projects, people, initiatives, how's everything related? You also told us that you wanted a place to feel that your community and your interests were represented. And then finally, you said that you wanted to have a two-way conversation between the general MBC community. So it wasn't leadership talking to the community talking to the leadership. It was really a two-way conversation. So that's what we're doing here. And I just want to catch you up really quickly on some things that are happening with Minnesota Breastfeeding Coalition. First of all, on the left, we have a really good and healthy budget. And Carrie, did you want to put in the chat the link? I made a little video. It's a little 6-minute video that just walks you through our 2022 budget. It's on YouTube, and Carrie's going to put that in the chat, and feel free to look at that anytime. But that's trying to be as transparent as possible. We'll put that link on our website too. But we have several grants and several contracts and some a generous anonymous donation and a little bit of event revenue. And that for 2022, that's come to just under $180,000. So about $179,000 is what we're sitting on right now in January as far as revenue. The vast majority of that is tied up in grants and contracts. So it's definitely spoken for, it's definitely already obligated to activities and people. But when we look at our expenses for this year are just about 183,000. So we are starting 2022 with a very nearly balanced budget, which I think is quite an accomplishment. The next thing we have is the 90-day challenge. And there are two links that Carrie's going to put in the chat. One is where you can watch the kickoff video. We had an hour-long kickoff. They answered questions about the 90-day challenge. And it also was an opportunity. And then the other link is going to be where you can see the 90-day challenge on our websites. Pa, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I'm wondering if Pa Shasky wanted to unmute and just speak quickly to the 90-day challenge if you have anything particular you want to highlight.
Yes, sorry, I was having some issues with unmuting. Yes, the 90-day challenge every Wednesday on Instagram, on Minnesota Breastfeeding Coalition's Instagram and Facebook feed, we will be featuring we will be highlighting a resource that perhaps may be new to most people. We also have a resource page, resource pages or resource bank on MBC's Wild Apricot website that hosts all of the local, state, and some national resources to help support breastfeeding in the workplace, in the school setting, and in the child care setting. So if you haven't checked it out, I encourage you to do so. And if you have like a go-to resource that you really like using or sharing with community partners, we would appreciate you sharing that with us so that we can post it up on the resource link. Yeah, and I think that's about it.
Thank you. The third big thing that's new is we have our 8th annual Perinatal Hospital Leadership Summit coming up. And Carol Bussman, I'm going to put you on the spot. I didn't ask you ahead of time, and I'm sorry. But if you have the opportunity to unmute yourself, would you like to quickly describe the summit? And then Carrie's going to put the registration link in the chat.
Yeah, it will be Friday, February 25th from 8 to 12 in the morning on Zoom. And I think it should be good. We're going to be having Dave Walls from Center Care begin it. And then we will have Marcia McCoy talk about the state of the state and what does breastfeeding look like in Minnesota and statistics, the MPINK, different things. And our keynote speaker is Dr. Kimmery Bug, and she has worked extensively with hospitals in Southeast United States and implementing the 10 steps and embedding them in hospitals like in, I think it was Alabama, wasn't it? Or Mississippi? I'm sorry, I'm losing track of my states. But
Mississippi.
there was
Mississippi.
Mississippi. No hospitals that had were baby friendly, and I looked on Monday, I think there were 22, and they've achieved that goal, but what it reflects is evidence-based practice really being established at the hospitals. It reduced disparities in breastfeeding initiation rates. So I think she has a lot to share with how you start moving that forward. And then there'll be Chris Scott talking about perinatal loss from the Minnesota Milk Bank, and last, and I cannot remember their names, but it's a presentation by two neonatologist fellows looking at reducing disparities in the NICU with breastfeeding, I believe. That one I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm sorry. And my computer is too small. I guess it doesn't say so here, but it should be an excellent program. It's from 8 to 12 in the morning. Registration is in Wild Apricot. I would encourage you to not only register, but then also bring several people with you, encourage them to register. So what else did I miss, Linda, or anyone else that's been on the committee?
I think
you covered it. Yeah.
Yeah, Jeannie and Kim and anybody else. I think you got it. Great. And so
All right.
the registration link is in the chat.
It'll be good.
Yeah, it'll be really good. So that's what's new, and we're a little ahead of schedule, which is exciting, but that means we can go to our next section right away. So I noticed that our speaker is just joining us right this second, which is perfect timing. So Karen and Christopher, I see that you've joined, and I'm excited. So I'm excited on behalf of Minnesota Breastfeeding Coalition to present Christopher Jones and Karen DeYoung from DeYoung Consulting Services. And at every representative council meeting, we're going to have a featured speaker or a featured project, because we want to share all these amazing, innovative projects that are happening around Minnesota. And so the first one is going to be about the META project, which is in Ramsey County and sort of the Twin Cities more generally. And so, Christopher, I'm wondering if I can just pass this over to you, and feel free to share your screen and stop my sharing if you'd like.
Thank you so much, Linda. And actually, it's actually going to be Karen that's going to be doing most of the presenting today.
Perfect. And you have slides, right? So you can just share. Okay, feel free to share over my slides.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, so you don't have to stop sharing for us to share.
No.
Okay. And Dr. Diane Bonigo, are you here, Diane?
I saw she was.
Yeah. So Diane and I'll do talking, and Diane will fill in with dropping knowledge, as she always does, as we go forward. So
great.
Chris, I don't know if you want to say kind of just start by just talking about how we got to this point where we're sharing with the group.
And please let me know if you have trouble sharing your screen over mine.
Sure, not a problem. So we, Ramsey County engaged DeYoung Consulting Services to help them with the outreach. We created a messaging to reach out to various partners, and we did all of the outreach and then facilitated listening sessions with people within the African American community. And we went through the project and created this messaging for uplifting breastfeeding with African American females, and we've created these documents that we will be sharing with our partners. So this will actually kind of show you the process that we went through to come to where we are today.
So Ramsey County put out, and I saw Paul chatted just a minute ago. So Ramsey County put out an RFP saying that they wanted to engage a consultant to conduct a process with the end goal being to increase breastfeeding participation in the US-born Black community. So I'll just go ahead and this will stop screen sharing. Do you want to continue? Yes. Okay. All right. And everyone can see that, I assume? Okay,
Great.
project purpose. Oh, I should
This looks
say, sorry,
perfect.
I'm Karen DeYoung, one of consultants with DeYoung Consulting Services. We're a small consulting firm. We do organizational development, facilitation, planning projects, and a lot of our work works with organizations to address disparities in some ways. So it's internal, getting input from internal employees, stakeholders, et cetera, or community members, and then helping organizations figure out how to take that information and use it to help further their mission, whatever that mission is. And Diane, do you want to introduce, and Chris, I don't know if you want to say anything else. Chris is a project manager at DeYoung Consulting Services. I don't know if you want to add anything, Chris.
And I was the one who did most of the outreach, both to the partners and to the individuals that took part in the listening sessions and the equity labs.
Yeah. Diane, do you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Diane Bonigo. I am a nurse midwife and perinatal consultant, and I help support the DeYoung Consulting team.
Yes, thank you. So as I said, we were hired by Ramsey County to conduct this process to help to increase breastfeeding rates in US-born African. We have US-born African Americans, everybody should be US-born Blacks, that they're less likely to continue to breastfeed throughout the year, the child's life, and these horrible outcomes, breast cancer, et cetera. So we were engaged to work with Ramsey County to do an outreach project, get feedback from community members, and really partner with them throughout. It really was a collaborative process to come up with some tools and messaging that could be used in the African American community. And Diane, please jump in whenever. So as Chris talked about, we did listening sessions with community members, 75 women and men participated, and we had 8 listening sessions. So we started out large, with big groups of people, just getting their feedback on related to breastfeeding. What do they think about it? What are some of the myths that they have heard? What has gone well? What are some of the challenges, et cetera? And then we did like an evaluation type analysis process where we took all the different comments that they made and we coded for each comment. And then we organized those comments into themes and then summarized those themes. And then we used it ultimately in conjunction with the equity lab to create messaging. And so we summarized our findings. So we're going to start with just sharing some of the findings that we heard in these listening sessions. We just thought because of who you are, you're focused on breastfeeding, that you might find this part interesting, and we'll get to the messaging at the end. So the findings, the themes that we heard in these listening sessions were perceptions were organized into these categories: perceptions of breastfeeding, personal challenges, structural challenges, and then success factors. Starting with perhaps perceptions of breastfeeding. So the positive perceptions that women had were from watching other women and their families, including experiences when they were children. A lot of women talked about watching their mom, their aunt, learning from their sisters. They heard about the health benefits of breastfeeding for their children. And some said it just felt really natural and right for them to do this. So when we actually presented this to Ramsey County, we included quotes, which are really, I think, an effective way of hearing people's stories, but just because of the time limitations here, we did not include them. So some of the negative perceptions that, of course, they do exist that can lead to discouragement, but women, hopefully, so I think we're perceiving that those perceptions were changing. And they talked about how they had to overcome the negative perceptions of breastfeeding in public. Like one woman talked about how she was tired of being part of the mom who always had to go into another room to breastfeed when they were having larger extended family gatherings, and how she just decided at one point, I'm not going to do that anymore. They need to change their own perception of breastfeeding over time. Some had just bad or painful experiences with breastfeeding, and sometimes their male partners were discouraging of it. There was one woman in the focus group that we talked to who teared up, who, everyone came around and comforted her because she felt I don't know, Diane, like not her womanhood was being almost like this, why can't I do this? You know, this is such an important thing. And it was so painful for her still. And her, you know, her child was older now, but she had such a difficult time breastfeeding and somehow felt like she was less than somehow.
Yeah, I was gonna say that it was a sense of inadequacy. Like, how can you be a mother and you can't feed your children? So it was definitely an internal struggle she had to deal with.
Yeah. Women had strong emotions about surrounding this. Sometimes their partners were the ones that were discouraging as well, as I said. And some talked about a lack of positive images. So not, you know, seeing primarily Caucasian women who were breastfeeding and not seeing people who look like them breastfeeding, and the need to have normalization of breastfeeding in the African-American community. There's were particular challenges around breastfeeding as an African-American. Some women talked about the whole idea of wet nurses, et cetera, and how that trauma of the role that Black women played, you know, even years later, really is still a thread. That trauma still being in existence, in place, and having an impact on women choosing to not breastfeed. The other thing was the sexualization of breasts in the African-American community. And that was in part too, that I referred earlier to male partners sometimes being discouraging too. So the breast is for, you know, for me, not for the baby. Diane, I see you nodding. Feel free to add in if you wanted to add anything else.
I mean, just the over-sexualization of the Black woman body and some of those historical things just kind of kept coming up. And so it's years later and we still struggle with that.
So that women said that understanding the breastfeeding experience and the options available, more information is what they were saying they wanted to have. That would be encouraging, especially with the cultural lens. Some of the women talked about not hearing about anything, you know, not really getting that information in the hospital as they were having their child or leading up to, you know, from their healthcare providers, that the images that they saw were about formula, not about breastfeeding. So really wanting to have accurate information about the benefits and how important it is for the mother's nutrition, how important the mother's nutrition is, and then the overall experience and challenge. They also wanted to know about the other options like pumping, and that a white dominant cultural lens may not encourage women to choose the right options. Personal challenges, and physical and emotional challenges. We spoke about this a little bit as they try to breastfeed. So they talked about the emotional pain, the physical change, soreness, complications, medications, difficulty latching. And some of them chose to not, you know, to stop, and some of them were able to persist and continue doing it. And then there were structural challenges as well. And I mentioned this before, the lack of information and support from medical professionals and health systems. Not getting enough information from the hospital or giving birth, and then being given formula, and then tacitly understanding that that was the best choice. That was what they were perceiving based on what was given to them. I'll pause here, Diane, if there's anything you want to add. Okay. There's a lack of trust in healthcare systems and medical professionals due to the racial inequities. And there's a perception that white patients receive better care, and seeing more African-American medical professionals and receiving more of a personal touch would have helped them feel more comfortable and trusting. And some women talked about relying on sources of information other than medical professionals. One woman, I was just rereading our PowerPoint that we presented this morning in anticipation of this, and one woman talked about having Caucasian health professionals, and how even though they were both speaking English, it felt like they were talking two different languages, that the person really just could not figure out how to effectively communicate with her. Returning to work was another systemic piece that made it difficult to breastfeed. And I know one woman in particular talked about not having a place to pump in her workplace, and talked about challenges like fitting in, expecting to come back to work and have everything be normal as it was before they left. You know, how do you fit pumping where and during what time can you pump milk. What made it women feel more successful in their breastfeeding? Sort of the opposite of what we were saying before, people who received information from medical professionals, including OBGYNs, nurses, doctors, and lactation specialists. And those women felt grateful and recognized that encouragement is critical. Back to the family members receiving essential support from friends and family, and then from others from within the Black community. They want to place their trust in friends and family of breastfeeding experience and see those people as being invaluable resources. And they said it was important to feel part of a community of Black mothers who breastfeed, even more so than having supportive partners. And then kind of a running joke for us was like the idea of them having this breastfeeding group meet at Starbucks, and all these Black women sit around at Starbucks breastfeeding to support each other. Women who received support from their specialists felt successful and confident. Again, the doula, lactation specialist, or coach, those people who had that were had positive things to say. Okay, so that I'll pause here. So that is kind of part one. So we had this big group of community members, and as Chris said, he did all this outreach. He connected with community-based organizations, and he did a lot of calling and reaching out to people to have this large group that were participating in these focus groups. He provided them incentives to participate. Then we asked, within these larger groups, we asked who would like to continue. Is there a question? Chris, can you help me keep track of? Oh, I'm sorry. I worked with y'all a few months ago. Oh, thank you so much, Katie. So we had this large group, and then we asked within the large group whether or not people would want to participate in the smaller group we call the Equity Lab. So this Equity Lab was really the partnership with us. So the presentation I just did, the findings. So we presented that to them and said, okay, now what? What do we do with this? How do we take this information and really put it into a format that is going to be digestible, that we can send out to the community? And what does that look like? What does that messaging look like? What does it say? And then in what format? And so we sort of brainstormed and talked about different options, and we ended up, let me see what the next, this is a picture. This is a screen share of our last Equity Lab meeting. I think there might be one person who's missing, and Hali at the top left, she's our media person who actually facilitated the process of getting the artist and putting together the books, etc. All right, it's frozen here. Let's see if I can get it to. Oh, there we go. All right, so again, we have this partnership with these 12 Equity Lab people. So those themes become the foundation that we use to draft the key messages and offer feedback on the development of materials. And then in this case, it ended up being, we had discussions about what would it look like. The t-shirts idea was, wouldn't it be great if we had this, t-shirts that people could walk around town with messaging. And then so we have these partners that we use to distribute the messages that came from the books. So this is the results. I don't know if anyone's used Jamboard. I think it's used more now with Zoom being so prevalent, but it's like a flip chart. You take yellow pieces of paper, like flip, what do you call it? Post-it notes. And you can just have ideas and move them around. So given all the successes, the things that makes it challenging, et cetera, all the things that we learn in these focus groups, and we decided to do a story. What did that story look like? So in the very middle, you could see once upon a time, write a story that represents the change we want to see in the African-American community, moving from the problem to the solution, including the motivation. So that was the key question, and we broke into 2 small groups. So this is just kind of that brainstorming. So this theme was the idea of Black girl magic, that we as a people were breastfed, in our the continent of Africa, and then that was taken away from us. We came here, we're traumatized, but now we're taking back our power and reclaiming breastfeeding. That was kind of the theme of this one. Diane, I'm going to ask you, you were in the second group, so I'm going to go to the next one and you can fill in if you remember that discussion. And this was this group's discussion.
I think this was the one that was talking about just kind of like the sister circle, just getting support about what that would look like, and how do we affirm and celebrate what we're doing and who would be in that circle. And so, it resonated well with the first story about, being brainwashed, having, your power stripped away. And then, we married it well with having people come around and support you and what that support would look like. And that's when they were talking about, consultants and just peer support and things like that.
Great. I see there's a chat comment. I'm gonna pause to see.
Introduction. Go ahead, keep
Oh,
going.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Why am I? There we go. All right, so this is the cover of the first of the book. So the stories are Liquid Gold and It Takes a Village, and our Halib, who I pointed out in the Equity Lab picture, again, was our partner to come to find the artists. And so I was taking those initial sort of brainstorming ideas that the Equity Lab came up with and really fleshing it out into a story. And then they had two artists help to create the two stories and bring and this is more, I mean, know what, and I'm not familiar with enough with art to kind of encapsulate what this would be. The other story is more of a, what is it that you like, Chris? It's anime. The other story is more of an anime sort of kind of look to it in the artist's sort of style.
With the focus being of like a Zoom call, like a family Zoom call.
Yes, it's a family Zoom call where they're talking back and forth about expectant couple and whether they're going to breastfeed or not, and then what are the pros and cons, and etc. And so these are the illustrations from the more like the Liquid Gold one. So the hearkening back to Africa and how we were traumatized and how we're taking back our power. So those are two distinct stories. And so that is the poster and book and little postcard, I guess it is. So you can see on the I guess that's the poster, the bottom left corner, it says Ramsey County. There's going to be a QR code so as these materials are distributed, people can hover over the QR code and go to a website, which we have to develop yet. It hasn't been done, and get information and resources and learn more about it. And these are the partners that we have, community partners who we're working with so far, who are going to help us to distribute these materials. Again, they're being, they're obviously committed to the community, but we believe it's important that they, as does Ramsey County, believe it's important that they be compensated for their time.
So Karen, I was just going to add, one of the things that I thought was very refreshing about the work and working with the illustrator and artist is how receptive they were to hearing from the participants of the Equity Lab. And when we came with different drafts, because we got a lot of drafts, a lot of versions, but how they wanted the books to be reflective of the community. And so one of the things that we heard during the listening session is that, the people that were helping them didn't necessarily look like them. And so you have a hard time trusting their information. And it's not to say that we can't partner, but it's a different type of connection that you have when you feel seen and visible. And so I was very appreciative that the artists and illustrators, actually listened to the team's suggestions and really kept trying to tweak and refine the illustrations to reflect just the community in general, but definitely something that resonated well with the people that contributed their time. Because if the goal is to normalize breastfeeding in community colors, specifically Black community, then they wanted to see themselves in this work. And so it was a it was an eye-opening process. And so hopefully, even though we're going to have these community partners that we're going to distribute it with, we want these materials to be shared with a greater community, because we know Black people are found in those other communities, and they may not necessarily have someone that's a champion for chocolate milk within those organizations. And so you can use this as a tool and redirect them to that community support that they need so that they can continue to breastfeed longer than their admission at the hospital after they birth their little person.
Thank you. Yeah, this was very much a give and take. Every stage of the work, the first draft of the story, the first draft of the illustrations, we went back to the equity lab and said, what do you think? And not this particular one, but the other more anime drawings were, not all of us are like Chris and used to the anime, the way that the characters are drawn, and they were not shaded in yet. So there was a big discussion about, do these look like Black people, essentially? And so there was a back and forth with the artist about the illustration and the hair and the skin tone. I thought it was, to Diane's point, I thought that it was a very productive, I think, and transparent conversation that we had. All right, moving on to phase 2. So that was sort of general. And then one thing about phase 1 was we had few males that participated in the discussion. And as we were thinking about kind of a next step, what is William's last name? Chris William at Ramsey County, if you think about it.
Moore?
He has,
Moore.
sorry,
William.
William Moore at Ramsey County, as a particular African-American man, has a particular affinity and call to helping young African-American youth. And so as a part of phase 2, we're gonna, the focus will be on young men. So that's still through the same process, equity, starting with the larger focus groups, and then an equity lab, but hoping to have young men, African-American men participating in the process. And to that end, because many of them will be 18, it'll be a family process as well. So we'll probably be doing, maybe we talked about the possibility of having some groups where the youth are in one room and the families are in another room, virtual probably, one room and the families are in another room. But.
And I was going to say, some of this phase 2 stemmed from the discovery at the original listening session when we had a few more males participate. But we heard that when women get the support of their male partners, even if they're not married, they are more likely to breastfeed, which we know for those of us that work in the community, that's to be true. And so if we could start this conversation in our younger generation, our male, how much further will we be 5 or 10 years from now? And so that's the pivot in the direction that we're hoping to take this second phase.
Yeah, and for sure that we had the conversation about catching them when they're young, right? Before, early on.
Before breasts are so sexualized.
Right. Go ahead.
You guys mentioned that you want to advocate to bring more people in.
You mean more people to participate in the process? Is that Hadija?
Yeah.
Yeah, to participate.
Yeah, because I'm a council member with chocolate milk. I don't know if you guys contact Laban.
Chris would know, because I think you did, Chris. But.
Yes, we did some outreach earlier. I mean, this was much further out, and I guess sometimes for some we didn't get responses back. But for this second phase of the work, we will definitely be doing. I would love assistance with anyone here. So anyone who does have an interest in partnering us with this second phase could definitely be able to just reach out to me, and we can then set up the partnership and work with the communications for the outreach. And we are also definitely would love to share the digital materials that we've created for this first phase, so that people, organizations here would be able to have that as well.
So we will. I'm sorry, Hadija.
No, I say thank you. We will have a meeting on Monday. Maybe I will bring this up.
That'd be great. So, well, if whatever and will need assistance in outreach, like getting the people for the focus groups, like young men to participate for the focus groups, and, you know, kind of partnering with us to get the information out when it's done too. So on both ends of the process. I think that's
I've also put my email in the chat. So anyone any organization or individual that is interested in working with us on this phase 2, please feel free to contact me.
I'm just looking at the chat to see if there's any questions. Oh, that's so nice.
I want to thank you so much. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it was, I've heard about this project frequently, as you know, but this is a more fulsome description and I really appreciate it. And just please, anybody who has questions, please unmute yourself or put something in chat. This is a great time to get your questions answered or make some comments based on your own personal experience.
So I do have a quick question. For your phase 2, are you just looking for men or are you looking for fathers?
Good question. I think we're looking at, we were trying to decide what age to go up to, and we decided maybe 21, but I think a lot of the folks will be 18 years and older. I don't know that Diane and Chris.
I would say yes and yes. We
Yeah.
want male, men, boys, the whole gamut that identify, because we know that that was something that was lacking in our community. And so we did have some older women in our first phase, right? And they had a different perspective. So there's some generational things that we like to address. And so even if they don't participate in the equity lab, it's nice to hear them when we do the listening sessions, because then we get some of those generational differences and we want to incorporate that in our product, whatever we come up with, if we're really trying to reach the whole gamut of people that identify as male.
And Jean says, I think it would be helpful to have fathers and not yet fathers.
So I see in the chat many comments about just how beautiful the artwork is. MBC has also worked with Lee Crone at OMG, and she is an amazing person to work with. She is totally responsive to what the community is requesting be depicted or the language being used. She's such a pleasure to work with. So I can't praise her work enough.
And for as
about the artists too. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that I thought, and Diane, you can weigh into that. Hilly was, I thought, as a Hmong woman, responsive to and letting us as a group lead, you know, what we thought was most important to have. And
yeah, I was just gonna say, she's very connected to just diverse communities. And a lot of times we get a project and then people try to take over it as a way of trying to get it done and be helpful. And so she definitely modeled what I like to call lateral leadership, and just being there and listening and moving this work forward and just using her network to make our vision come to life. So I was very grateful for her.
Can you speak to the artists? Because I love having having art come from within the community too.
Yeah, I should have. I just chatted Chris privately and said, do you have anything from the other artists? Because the style was so different. I think in the Haley showed us the examples of the artists' work before they were selected. And she talked to them and like their, you know, not just their style, but also kind of their whole way of being, for lack of a better term. And maybe Chris can look. I was looking to see if I could pick out names from the PowerPoint, but
yeah, I'm looking as well.
I can I can talk to you a little bit about it.
Sure.
If you don't mind. So I didn't do the illustrations, but I did the lettering and the formatting and the backgrounds for the cover. And I'm a Black woman in St. Paul, and just looking at the other artists as well, it felt like we all had like ties to the community and wanting to like really kind of give back and make and what the work that the art that we do participate in also is like very reflective of, you know, our community and being Black and wanting to like give back. I think I'm repeating myself, but I also have 4 kids and I breastfed all of them, and I'm still breastfeeding my youngest. So it's also really important to like want to work on that because just wanting to continue to get education out there. And I love the first story about how it was our ancestors and they all did this, and like it's our ancestral right to feed our babies from our bodies. And it was just like a really beautiful project to work on.
Thank you for your help. I was going to say we had 2, yes, Katie was awesome. We had 2 different artists and we had one illustrator. She was our illustrator to kind of structure it. And they also, we asked them to kind of, they heard the stories, they were able to listen or get little snippets of the conversation that we had and was able to use their creative talent to kind of add on top of that. And so we had people that were close to the process and further out so they can see the big picture, because we wanted to make sure that it made sense to the greater community besides the people that are just at the Equity Lab and participated. So it was a really good experience. And so she was intentional about who she selected and gave us, and we got a chance to kind of interview their work. A lot of times when you're doing a project, you don't have some of the artists actually come and hear the feedback, which I was a little concerned because, sometimes our people can be very, very honest. But they were very professional in how they received the information and came back and gave us a rendition. And so it speaks to the talent that we have in a community that is often overlooked. So.
And Chris says he has the book queued up, so we can just go. I know we have a few more minutes. That's the cover you've seen already.
Can I ask, while we're looking at the book, Mrs. Linda, can I ask both Karen and Chris a question? Because I keep hearing themes of transformation, of, feeling the process being very transformative. And I'm wondering, for you as leading the project and maybe not having been very steeped in the lactation world before you took on this project, did you feel that you went through a transformation?
Diane obviously is steeped in the lactation world, but I don't think I breastfed both of my kids for 2 years. So I don't know that it was a transformation for me. And it was, I'm older, so it was a different time, and maybe probably not as, it's done differently now. But I think it was more, I was happy to take this project because that was it continues years later to be a very important part of my parenting life. I think that was a pivotal time for me. So for me, it was more of a affirmation of what was already kind of and an opportunity to work on something that was consistent kind of with my own values and way of thinking.
For me, I said it was a very big learning experience for me. Learning, what as a Black man, what role I can play in supporting, especially my wife. We have a 4-year-old who is still somewhat breastfeeding with my wife, and a year ago, him still breastfeeding would have seemed weird to me, or I would probably have some comments. And now through this project, I have a different way of thinking about it. So it was very eye-opening for me. I got a great experience.
There's a question in the chat: how much does the book cost?
Doesn't cost anything. Yeah, we're I don't know how many copies do we have, Chris? We're distributing it to our partners, 300 or something.
We have 300 books that we will be distributing, but we will be sending out all the digital copies of it to all the partners that they can disperse to all the other organizations.
And MBC will be one of the partners, and we have an online store where you can go in and order things like the challenge kit and t-shirts and stuff. And we'll have those books on our store, so you can order them, and then we'll ship them out. We'll cover the cost of shipping out the books. So you can definitely order some from us, or our pediatrician's office. That's a great comment from
Yeah, we don't have partners with medical facilities, I don't think, Chris, at this point, but
We do have one. Children's Hospital is one of our
that's right.
partners, so they will definitely be distributing.
And so we had talked about this. It's not necessarily finalized, but definitely we want to get the digital copies out. But one of the things we were talking about, even with our internet work and using like MBC and Twin Cities, is doing a ask media campaign people here to just spread this out. So everyone here probably will get a notification once we're ready to go viral, to ask folks to share the link. So hopefully that it will land on some pediatric providers in their on your doorstep, so they can distribute and share it.
I thought I just interested if you put page back up there, because just something that Hilly had pointed out. No, the next one. Hilly had pointed out this just in terms of the inclusiveness, that the mother there is wearing a hearing aid. I thought that was a great inclusive touch.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Paige, can you, I just want to show, before we're done, I just want to show the other artists, because these are all
please
the same
do.
artists.
Yes.
Which is a very different style.
We're getting ideas in the chat about like prenatal, high school, health classes. We'll collect these ideas for you. Oh yeah, very different style.
Yeah, so this is more the anime style. Right.
And so just for the people that are making comments about the places that we should distribute it, I mean, it may not necessarily be the hard copy, but they will be able to get them if they want to order it. But if you guys have a specific name on who we can send the QR code to when we're up for our mass distribution, that will be great. And then Linda probably can get it to Chris, and we can include them in our push.
That was it.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for the
I'm gonna
opportunity.
move on, but I want to make sure that people know that they can still ask questions and make comments in the chat for our presenters. I'm gonna move on. I wonder if anybody remembers that we're actually having a free a giveaway today for a t-shirt. So these are the options. I'm gonna spin a wheel with everybody's name on it, and the lucky person will be able to pick a short sleeve white t-shirt, a racerback gray t-shirt, or a little onesie. And these are members of our MBC community who are wonderful models. And baby Yvonne in the middle, yes, she does have a 221. So you can accessorize the MBC onesies and t-shirts, definitely. So here I'm gonna go.
Linda.
Has everybody's name on it, and I'm gonna spin it, and the winner is going to be he's gonna be able to order a t-shirt for free. Okay, here we go. Brianne Nowak. Okay, Brianne, are you on this call? Because I took this from the registration, and I think I got everybody, and I just want to see, is Brianne still on this call? No? Okay, we're gonna do it again then. We're gonna roll it again. One more time. Emily Curran, are you on this call? Oh, please. Is Emily still here? Okay, we're gonna do it one more time then. Of course, we're getting all the people who had to leave early. Okay. This is just creating more suspense, right? Rajatu, oh my gosh. I know you're here. So.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, hooray. Congratulations. So you can put if you in the chat, if you want to just message me, Linda Kopecki, if you want a short sleeve t-shirt and what size, or a gray racerback and what size, or a onesie. And the onesies are only 3 to 6 month size. And we'll send it to you. So hooray. Thank you. So that done. The next part is when we want everybody to share with us. So Carrie, could you put the Padlet link in the chat, please? We're going to use Padlet, which is sort of like Jamboard, which Karen mentioned. It's that online sort of sticky wall. And Padlet is similar to the online sticky wall. I think I have to stop sharing to get it up, unfortunately. Just a second, I have to. Here we are. So Carrie, when you put you put the link in there and you just click on the one that says Padlet and you will see this. So this is good, local activities, thank you. So I want you to contribute. You can unmute yourself and you can talk about these things. If you want to add something to these columns, you just click on the plus and you add something, and then you click outside of your box to add something to that column. But we're really interested. We want to know, what are some of your local activities that are coming up? What is your coalition or your organization's goals for 2022? What do you want to say to the board of directors of MBC? And then maybe you have some hopes and dreams for the coalition. Maybe you have some things that you would love for MBC to do in the future. So please add those to the chat, add them to this board, or please unmute yourself. So, okay, a milk drive for the Minnesota Milk Bank for babies, definitely. Okay, hopes for MBC to connect with new partners. Great. If you have suggestions for new partners, please add those. That's really important for us to stay connected to the broader community. Went to the conference in California about a year ago, their breastfeeding summit. And one thing a speaker said that has just stuck with me is we have to stop speaking just to each other. So I'm committed to providing some leadership for MBC so we are not just speaking to each other. Okay, thanks, Diane. I know you had to leave. Okay, Hadijat, I thank you. Small short sleeve. Okay, I'll send that to you. And then Hadijat, if you can just in the chat to me, just give me your mailing address too, and I'll send the t-shirt to your mailing address. So any other comments that you have or anything else you want to add here? So coordinating August breastfeeding awareness. Okay, I'll put that in maybe hopes for MBC. So coordinating the August events, right? If you want to unmute yourself, you can mention that.
Yeah, that is what I would like. Just to make it easier, and also maybe it would be consistent across the state so that it would be like a bigger message.
Okay. So I'm looking to Carrie Clun from MDH WIC, and maybe that's something MBC and MDH WIC can do together, is provide some overall coordination across the state for August events.
I love that idea. And I'd love to, yeah, even if Connie, if you want to be on a group, maybe we could make a little planning team.
Mhm. Okay, somebody has a Facebook support group. Hooray, we're still living into our virtual world. And you know, these comments are anonymous. So if you want to make a comment to the board of directors here, feel free to, but they're anonymous. We don't know necessarily who's making the comment. Baby Cafe opening in April. Wow. It's exciting. Okay. Connecting with the doula community. Thank you. Good suggestion. And feel free to unmute yourself or add something in the chat. I'm going to check the chat, see if there's anything else. More inclusive language, lactation and nursing. Thank you. Yeah, we revamped our website and our communications, and it's a process, and we're working on using more inclusive language, but you know, it's not a box that you check. It's an ongoing process. So thank you for keeping us honest. How do you support people wanting to move into lactation roles in the BIPOC community? Yeah, so we have a couple pilot projects in a scholarship program right now, supporting BIPOC persons who are interested in advanced certification in lactation. And our hope is to be rolling that into sort of a formalized, supportive, ongoing program that is a cohort model. So people can enter the cohort and get support and work with their peers, and then move towards that advanced certification. It hasn't been formalized yet, but I think there's more to be done. So if you're interested in participating, you know, feel free to message me. Mothers groups in church places or places of worship. Maybe other people have ideas for tapping into houses of worship for lactation support. How do people apply for scholarships? We should be, thank you for that question, Katie. We should be launching the next scholarship very soon. We have some more funding, and we are going to reopen the scholarship. Just have to finalize some of the other pieces of that supported pathway 3 that we want to do too. Any other comments? Feel free to unmute yourself if you want to make a comment or ask a question.
Do you offer any kind of scholarships just for the CLC?
We have we offered, the last time we had a round of scholarships last June, we had there are sort of 2 tracks, and one was for BIPOC persons who were wanting that advanced certification or that IBCLC pathway, and another was the folks who just needed that foundational lactation education, like the CLC, that 45-hour training. And so we were able to offer 3 scholarships for folks wanting the advanced certification, and 2 scholarships for folks wanting just a foundational lactation training. And we haven't determined if we're going to go with those 2 tracks again. The goal really is creating a medical lactation workforce that is representative of the people who live in Minnesota. And different ways to get there, but that's really that ultimate goal. But everything will be on our website. We'll send it out in our newsletter. Anything else? Any other MBC leaders who want to unmute themselves and maybe mention some things that have been going on with MBC or ask some questions of the community?
Hi, it's Shoshana here. I forgot to mention earlier when I introduced myself that I'm one of the co-leaders of the Equity and Access group subcommittee with the Minnesota Breastfeeding Coalition. And I just wanted to invite everyone to come join us on the first Wednesday of the month over the lunch hour. Is that the right day, Linda? Yep.
I think so.
The first Wednesday of the month over lunch hour.
Mm-hmm. We're a good group, aren't we?
Yeah.
Okay, this is good. Thank you so much for adding to this. If you have anything else, just add it right now. The final thing that we're going to do is we need to do a poll. So when we had our annual meeting last fall, questions we asked was, do you want representative council to meet every month or every other month? So we have a poll and I would like to launch it because we didn't get a really good answer. It was kind of divided. So we're going to try again and see how often you want to meet. So if this is an example of a representative council, how often do you want this? So feel free to answer. Now leave it open just another 30 seconds. So 2/3 of you have responded. If you can respond to how often you want to meet with the representative council. I'll let a couple more people chime in. Okay. And that's what it looks like. Do you see that? Every other month, I think, is the winner. So we'll do this every other month. So that sounds great. And that we can definitely do that. And it will, this is a Thursday morning. It's the second Thursday of the month, and we'll probably stick with the second Thursday, but second Thursday every other month sounds good. Okay. Any final comments? We're wrapping up, and I'm just so appreciative for everybody to have attended. A couple questions in the chat. Any IBCLCs here who can have somebody shadow them? And Rhonda, we're actually working hard with some hospitals to develop internship sites for those 500-hour internship obligations for the IBCLC preparation. So I definitely would like to loop you in those conversations, because I would love to be able to get the process to become an IBCLC a lot smoother and easier to navigate than it currently is. And a big part of that is finding those IBCLCs to be a mentor. Any other comments from any of the MBC leaders? Just another couple things in the chat that lactation lounges are going to be popping up in Ramsey County, which is exciting. Internships, yes, internships with 3 exclamation points or 2. We're really working hard on making that a formal and easy to access possibility instead of something that is really, really confusing, which is what it is now. Okay, so thanks everybody. I'm going to close out our first representative council meeting. I appreciate everybody who attended. Hadija, I'll be sending the t-shirt to you very soon. And I'm really glad to have seen everybody here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care.